Hello and welcome. You're watching the Daily News Simplified, and I'm Ankit. Now, today we'll be dealing with 6 important topics because today is 1st of July and it becomes the date where India's new criminal laws will be implemented. So, please do not forget to hit the like button and also subscribe to our YouTube channel for more and more updates. Also, many of you know Dr. D. Subbarao, who was a former RBI governor and finance secretary to the government of India. But what many of us don't know is that he was also a Raus IAS alumni and he topped the IAS exam back in 1972. So we'll be publishing his interaction with students tomorrow sharp at 6 p.m. So please do not forget to watch the interaction of Dr. D. Subbarao with students at 6 p.m. Hence, you should also know that we'll not be publishing DNS tomorrow because at the same time, the interaction with Dr. D. Subbarao will be going live. So now let us move on to our today's DNS with the first article of the day, which you can see appeared in the Hindu and the Indian Express newspaper. Now this news article, they highlight that India enacted 3 new criminal laws back in the month of December. However, it is from today, that is 1st of July, that these 3 acts will come into force. So we'll be discussing in detail the key provisions of these 3 criminal laws and also the challenges that the government might face in enacting these 3 case laws. Now let us start our today's discussion by understanding what is a crime. Now any intentional act which can be socially harmful or it is specifically defined under the law as a prohibited or a punishable offense, they are called as a crime. Now the acts which are constituted as crime has seen various evolution. For example, back in the past, acts such as commission of or forcing someone to commit sati or asking for dowry was seen both as a legally acceptable and socially acceptable cause. However, as the society of India progressed, we saw that these acts, they were against the very individual, hence they are termed as a crime in today's jurisprudence. And hence any nation's criminal jurisprudence should act as a social mirror, that it should tell the society what acts are legally prohibited and what constitutes as a crime. And hence, in this regard, these 3 laws becomes important. That is Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita, and Bharatiya Sakshya Adhiniyam, as all these 3 laws were enacted in the year 2023. Now let us understand what was the reason which prompted the government to reform its criminal laws. Now, before the enactment of these laws, India had 3 colonial era laws. These were Code for Criminal Procedure, Indian Penal Code, and Indian Evidence Act. Now, as I've already highlighted, these 3 laws originated in colonial times and witnessed many amendments during the colonial times and also post-independent India as well. However, India's current legal system, it demands new laws. Hence, these laws, they were eliminated and government brought 3 new laws in total. Now, as I've already told you, these 3 laws were colonial in nature because these laws were passed to serve the ways and means of colonial regime. However, post independence, India needed a new criminal system because first of all, it should reflect the ideals of a democratic nation like India, and it should also highlight what should be the evolving societal change that is necessary as per the ideals of Constitution of India. Hence, modernization of criminal laws was the first intention to bring reforms in the criminal laws in general. Further, India's criminal system, that is criminal jurisprudence, is riddled with delays in conviction, and this hampers the ability to ensure timely justice to the grievances. Hence, to deal with large pendency in court, which has gone above 4.7 crore cases, we needed a new set of laws that are simple, and it prompted the judiciary to punish the criminals in general. Hence, Addressing the large pendency and ensuring timely justice was the need to reform the criminal laws. Further, also due to inefficiencies in our legal system, and this was due to lack of police as well as societal measures, it prompted or it reduced the conviction rates in general. Because due to inefficiencies in the legal system and pendency, it hampered the ability of judiciary to punish a criminal. Hence, in order to increase the conviction rate by simplifying the legal system and also modernizing it, will is the immediate need of a criminal jurisprudence in the country. Further, to suggest improvements in then criminal laws that were CRPC, IPC, and IEA, many commissions were set up. For example, Law Commission gave certain recommendation. Also, there was this Malimat Commission as well as Justice Verma Commission, which was set up after the Nirbhaya Act. Hence, all these three commissions, they gave certain recommendations. Hence, the government wanted to incorporate the recommendations of these commissions into new criminal laws. Hence, these three criminal laws were eliminated and were replaced by different laws such as these. And we'll be discussing these laws in detail. So let us understand first of all the provisions of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, which is aimed to replace Indian Penal Code. Now, before the Indian Penal Code was brought forward in the year 1860, there exists a plethora of complex legal systems. First of all, it consisted of parliamentary charters of United Kingdom, in addition to regulations, which was brought by then ruling East India Company, in addition to various laws by religious practices such as Hindu code will, laws of Islam, as well as other religions. Now, this caused a complex array of legal system which confused the then policymakers. Hence, back in 1834, a committee was set up under then Thomas Babington Macaulay to suggest amendment and bring a new modern code of criminal laws. Hence, the Indian Penal Code was enacted in the year 1860, and after that it went significant revisions. Hence, Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, it aims to replace Indian Penal Code with a new set of laws, and it consists of many provisions. First of all, the most talked about feature of Indian Penal Code was the provision of sedition, which was under section 124A of the Indian Penal Code. Now, this provision, that was sedition, it outlawed any attempt to bring hatred or contempt against the government. However, it was seen that even the legal opposition of the government can be interpreted as a government and misused to punish the members of opposition under the provision of Sedition Act. Hence, the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, it removes the word sedition and aligns the act with that of reasonable restrictions which are provided under Article 19, subsection 2 of the Indian Constitution. Now, this provision that it outlaws any activity against the Indian nation, especially those activity which in a way excite armed rebellion or encourage separatist activity, which you can say hampers the sovereignty and integrity of the India. Hence, it removes the word sedition and outlaws any activity which goes against the interest of Indian state. Hence, in a way, it aligns the provisions with the reasonable restrictions that are provided under Article 19, subsection 2 of the Indian Constitution. Further, this act also defines terrorism as an act which threatens, first of all, the unity and integrity of India, and it also aims to strike terror among the people of India, both in domestic and foreign territory. Earlier, the provisions of terrorism were dealt with special acts such as Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, TADA Act, as well as POTA Act, which was enacted from time to time. However, these were ephemeral laws that These laws were only in act for a certain period of time, after which they were removed. Hence, this Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, it defines terrorism and provides for elaborate punishment on activities or individuals who are involved in terrorist activities. Further, it also distinctly categorizes an activity called organized crime. Now it defines organized crime such as act which is intent to kidnap or commit extortion or commit contract killing, and these acts are categorized as organized crime. Earlier, the issues related to organized crime were also dealt by special laws such as Maharashtra Control of Organized Crime Act, which was in place in the state of Maharashtra. Hence, this act, it removes the requirement for temporary laws and it provides a distinctive category of organized crime as well. Further, in India, we have witnessed increased cases of mob lynching and hate crimes. Hence, the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, it also criminalizes the act of mob lynching by highlighting that any group of individual, which is more than 5 individual, and when they commit a crime, that is hurting an individual or murdering an individual based on the criteria such as religion, race, caste, language, etc. Hence, these acts will be committed as a mob lynching act and hence makes it both penalizing and penalizing this act by virtue of death penalty and also imprisonment in case of hurt of individual. Also, to in a way promote rehabilitation of people, this act also provides for community service in case of petty crimes. Now, what are petty crimes? These are crimes which are petty in nature. For example, crimes such as attempting suicide or committing a defamation or a public misconduct by an individual who is in an inebriated state can be defined as a petty crime, and these are punishable by virtue of community service. Hence, we can say this provision, it enables rehabilitation of an individual, such as reforming that individual. Also, this act, what it does is that it consolidates the sexual offenses both against women as well as against children in a separate chapter. Now, in case of gang rape against a minor or also committing of marital rape against a minor wife, it is defined as a criminal act under this particular Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita and it is punishable by various quantum of punishment. Further, in case of women, this act, it also criminalizes sexual intercourse by deceitful means. So you can say this act focuses especially on the vulnerable sections such as women and children. Also, this act in a way implements many of the Supreme Court's judgment. For example, in Navteej Johar case, Supreme Court, it decriminalized a provision in the section 378 of the Indian Penal Code, that is, it legalized consensual same-sex relationship between two individuals. So, this Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, it removes this section 377 of the IPC, making it more progressive. Further, in Joseph Shine versus Union of India case, the Supreme Court, it decriminalized adultery, that is, section 498 of the IPC. Now, this act, it criminalized the adultery. Hence, the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, it also removes the section 498 of the IPC. Hence, you can say it in a way implements the judgment of Supreme Court of India. Now, in terms of many other provisions, such as that of punishment in case of hit and run case, which you can see is on the rise in India, and also it in a way criminalizes snatching incidences. Further, it decriminalizes acts such as attempting suicide, as well as it increases the fine in case of animal cruelty. So this was all for Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, and let us move to the next law, which is called as Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita. Now, earlier there was this act called Code for Criminal Procedure, which was enacted in the year 1970. However, the original act, it was also colonial in nature. It was passed back in the year 1861. Now, this act, it provides for procedure in case of arrest, prosecution, as well as bail provisions. So, also, this act, as you can understand, was a colonial in nature. Hence, Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita, it aims to replace the Code for Criminal Procedure. Now, first of all, India is witnessing high amount of prisoners who are under trials. That is, by latest report, as much as 75% of total prisoners who are imprisoned in India, they have not witnessed their trials or they are under trials. And because of imprisonment of under trials prisoners, we have seen increase in occupancy rate in Indian jails. That currently Indian jails have as much as 131% of occupancy. That is, 31% of occupants are more than what is there should be, or what is the capacity of Indian jails. Understood? So this act, that is Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita, it in a way provides for detention of under trials provision and it liberalizes it. For example, any first time offender who has completed one third time of the required punishment that is there on his crime, in that case, that under trial will be given or will be released after he or she submits a bond. And in case a prisoner, he or she spends almost half of the time in the prison as against the crime he has committed, then he or she will be given bail. Now, this liberalized provision for under trials is not applicable for persons who are accused of heinous crimes such as murder, which provides for life imprisonment and death penalty. So you can understand, to deal with the situations of overcrowding of Indian jails, this act, it liberalizes the detention of under trials. Further, in any case which has a punishment of more than 7 years of imprisonment, this act makes forensic investigation mandatory by the state. And if the state does not have required facility, then the required state can take help of another state. Further, this act, it gives the power to magistrate to obtain signature, finger impression, voice samples, as well as other records such as submission of signature, fingerprints, as well as voice samples. The magistrate can order obtaining of these samples from both accused as well as prisoners as well. Further, to simplify the criminal jurisprudence system, this act, it provides for timelines for various procedures. For example, it gives definite timeline for submission of medical report to investigation officers. It also gives time for framing of charges by police, and also it imposes timeline on judiciary to give judgment in required time. So all these suggestions, you can understand, it in a way deals with the issues that are related to India's criminal jurisprudence. First of all, that highlighted that India is witnessing overcrowding in jails, hence it liberalized the detention of under trials. It provides for mandatory forensic investigation, which will then supplement the criminal jurisprudence. It also eases the way to obtain signature and various handwriting samples, and it also gives a specific timeline to both police and judiciary to give their required duty. Hence, let us move to next set of laws, which is termed as Bharatiya Sakshya Adhiniyam of the year 2023. Now, this Bharatiya Sakshya Adhiniyam, it aims to replace Indian Evidence Act of the year 1872. Now, this act, it provided for gathering evidences. Now, this evidence, they play a key role in India's criminal law system, because based on this evidence, the judiciary decides on the particular case. Now, obtaining of this evidence is a crucial step in India's criminal jurisprudence. Hence, you can see any colonial law which was passed back in 1872, it does not account for modern technological changes and how it can simplify gathering of evidences by police and judiciary. Hence, in order to make this act more tech friendly and modern, Bharatiya Sakshya Adhiniyam was enacted. Now, this act, it provides for admissibility of digital evidences, and it gives these digital records such as records of phone calls, server logs, emails, and it gives these digital evidence the same sanctity as that of paper evidences. Further, this electronic records, they can also be submitted as a documentary evidence during a procedure or a trial of an individual. Further, it also simplifies the procedure for obtaining oral evidences. Now, any evidence is given in a court of law where the victim testifies against the accused. Now, this act, it simplifies the procedure for obtaining oral evidences, that the oral evidences can also be gathered by electronic means now. Further, in case of joint trials, which is trial of more than one person, it also simplifies the need for joint trial. That whenever the one of the accused is absconding or not present in court, then also the joint trials can take place. So you can understand India's legal jurisprudence has gone a significant transformation by enactment of these three laws. However, these three laws, they are not also away from significant issues as well. So in this regard, let us understand what are the issues that these three laws may face. Now, first of all, it has been said by the government that these three laws are reformative in nature, that they are totally new laws. However, critics of these laws, they also point out that the new terms in these laws, they are just new terms for the existing provisions. For example, this act, it widened the definition which was given in the sedition, because sedition, it enacted or it criminalized actions against the government, and the new act, it widens the definition of sedition by removing the word government and replacing it with country. Further, these laws, they are also riddled with ambiguous terminology. For example, it criminalizes the term that is outraging the modesty of women. However, it does not define what constitutes the modesty of women. Further, acts such as jeopardizing or threatening the sovereignty and integrity of India, they are also ambiguous term, and these ambiguous term, they give wider and discretionary power to the police forces in India. Further, this law also provides missed opportunity. For example, there are various issues that are related to marital rape. That means forceful sexual offense against a own wife. Now, there are various demands of making this marital rape a criminal offense. However, these new laws, they do not constitute or do not make marital rape a criminal offense. Further, this law by enactment also poses certain practical difficulties. For example, in case of rape which is committed against a male individual, the justice system sought recourse under the section 377 of the Indian Penal Code. However, since this act has removed the provision of section 377, hence dealing with cases such as rape against a particular male will face practical difficulties. Also, by making forensic evidences mandatory in cases which have punishment for more than 7 years, it also pressurizes the institutions by scaling up of their infrastructure in a quick manner. Hence, these were the issues that the new laws may face, and we'll witness how these laws are implemented by the government in the near future. So this was all for discussion in the first article, and with this we move to second article of the day, which you can see appeared in the op-ed section of the Hindu newspaper. Now, only recently, Supreme Court passed a judgment in MK Ranjit Singh versus Union of India case, where the Supreme Court highlighted that fundamental right will now also include protection against the adverse effects of climate change. So you can say the Supreme Court has widened the ambit of fundamental rights in India. Now, this judgment becomes significant from GS paper 2 perspective, which highlights Indian constitution and its significant provision. Further, GS paper 3 syllabus also highlights environmental pollution and degradation. So this case becomes important from mains examination as well. Further, if you can see PYQ of the year 2022, the question asks the most significant achievement of modern law in India is the constitutionalization of environmental problem by Supreme Court. Now, this case is a direct example of constitutionalization of environmental problem by the Supreme Court. Hence, you can understand this topic is very important from mains examination perspective. Now, let us first highlight what is the background of this issue. Now, the government, it was trying to have transmission lines in the state of Rajasthan, and these transmission lines were to pass through a protected area which was meant to protect the critically endangered species of great Indian bustard. So this case, it reached Supreme Court. That the conservationists, they highlight that any measure that are taken by government to establish or to set up transmission lines in the protected area will go against the very nature of protecting this critically endangered species. Now, in the Supreme Court, in its judgment, it legalized the government step. That is, it enabled the government to set up transmission lines even in the protected area. It highlighted that the situation of climate change, it gives a responsibility of to the government to set up the measures to reduce the carbon output of Indian economy, that is by setting up of renewable energy infrastructure. So in a way, it legalized setting up of transmission lines in the protected areas. Now, also in its decision, the Supreme Court widened the ambit of fundamental rights by protecting the Indian citizens from the adverse impact of climate change. For example, the Supreme Court highlighted that Article 21, it provides citizen of India with right to life, and this right to life can be also interpreted right to healthy and clean environment. Further, it in a way highlighted that any measure which is taken by government of India to promote or to provide clean and healthy environment, it is protected under the particular Supreme Court decision. Further, it also highlighted that the impact of climate change is not equally impacting the every section of society. For example, the most vulnerable and downtrodden section of society, they are more impacted by the adverse impact of climate change. Hence, the Supreme Court highlighted that Article 14, which provides for right to equality, it also means protecting the adverse impact of climate change from all the citizens of India. That is, all the citizens of India should be equally protected by the state from the adverse impact of climate change. So you can understand this is the judicial approach towards climate change. It is somewhat sporadic and temporary. So what we need is a comprehensive step by the government to bring legislative authority to the decisions of judiciary. Hence, in this regard, let us understand what the proposed legislation can include in order to protect India from the adverse impact of climate change. Now, first of all, the Supreme Court, it can, or the government, it can undertake measures to promote sustainable development. That is, it should promote regulations to make cities and transport networks more sustainable. It should promote climate smart agricultural practices, such as to reduce the carbon output of agricultural sector, and also protection of critical ecosystems such as mangroves, etc. Further, the Supreme Court, it provides for sustainable development in order to further the provisions of Article 21, that is right to clean and healthy environment. Further, in order to promote social equity, that is uh, making the impact of climate change more equitable, the Supreme Court wants to attain or achieve right to equality. So, in this regard, any proposed legislation should also ensure social equality by addressing the climate injustice, especially to the downtrodden sector. Also, the focus of the government should be equally on both mitigation, that is, reducing carbon emissions, and also adaptation, such as making infrastructure more resilient. So, in this regard, we can take many suggestions, especially from the international experience. That is, the government should focus on enabling the development by promoting sustainable development by emphasizing equally on both mitigation and adaptation. Additionally, the government should encourage private sector to bring a more carbon neutral growth policies. Additionally, government should also ensure that the policies or principle of federalism is followed in true extent. For example, policies related to urban areas, water management, as well as agriculture should be left towards state government, and the central government should provide for necessary collaboration and also necessary support infrastructure. Further, to make this law more effective, it is also necessary to engage non-government organizations such as private sector as well as civil society organizations, as these organizations, they will promote necessary participation, that is, will make lawmaking process more inclusive, and also will promote knowledge sharing between government and academia and private sector in general. So this was all for second article, and with this we move to third article of the day, which you can see also appeared in the Hindu newspaper. Now this article is in context with recent controversy related to NEET UG exam. Now this article, it closely follows GS paper 2 syllabus, which highlights issues relating to development and management of social sector services relating to the education sector. Further, questions have been asked quite frequently on the education sector. Case in point, this PYQ of the year 2020. So in this regard, let us understand how the provision of education falls under the responsibility of various government. Now in the evolution, first comes the Government of India Act, which was passed by colonial regime back in the year 1935. Now, according to this act, the responsibility of educational was left to provincial governments. And this continued even when the India got independent and after the enactment of constitution. That is, first of all, the Indian constitution, it provides for various powers and responsibilities, and it distributes these responsibilities to various governments through 7th schedule. Now this schedule consists of union list, which directly makes union government responsible for enactment of provisions which are there in union list, whereas based on state list, the state government has an exclusive jurisdiction. Also, there's this concurrent list over which both union and state governments have their respective jurisdiction. Now, whenever the Indian constitution was enacted, the provision related to education was there in state list, which makes the state government exclusively responsible for provisions related to education. However, after the enactment of 42nd Amendment Act, the provision of education was moved to concurrent list. Now you can understand the 7th schedule can be modified by Union Parliament, and it can do so by special majority in both houses of the Parliament, in addition to consent of more than half of the Indian states. Now please tell me or answer what is this special majority down in the comment section below. Now, as education was moved into the concurrent list, it was the reason was given that it was needed to bring uniform policies in this regard. For example, any progressive education policy, when it is enacted by central government, it will ensure uniformity in the policy related to education. Further, the union government can also ensure improved standard by making education more and more progressive. Further, by giving the responsibility to both state and central government, by bringing education in concurrent list, it was envisaged that there will be enhanced synergy between both union as well as state governments. However, due to recent controversies, there have been increased in demand that is moving education to state list. And the reasons have been highlighted that first of all, India is a diverse nation which consists of many cultures and languages. Hence, there should be no one size fit approach, and hence any policy should ensure proper justice to India's diversity. Also, there is disparity in expenditures in terms of education. That, as per as recent spending by both governments, state government, their educational department, they're responsible for 85% of spending on a education sector, whereas central government it only spends about 15% of funds. So as the critics have highlighted that state government, as they are spending more, hence they should have significant amount of autonomy over the educational sector. Further, moving education to state policy will also ensure tailor-made policies regarding needs and wants of various different states. For example, Tamil Nadu has been demanding for separate exams for medical examinations, whereas union government, in order to have uniform policy, it consolidated various different exams and it enacted the NEET exam. Whereas same for the engineering sector, there was this exam called joint entrance exam which provides for admission in both IITs and NITs. So you can highlight that education, when moved to concurrent list, it enacted for uniform policy, whereas on the other hand, moving education to state list will ensure tailor-made policies based on the requirements of different state. Additionally, the article it also highlights that center can still regulate education, such as through bodies such as National Medical Council, Union Grants Commission, as well as AICTE, which regulates technical education in India. Hence, this was all for today's discussion in the third article, and with this, we move to next set of articles. Now, as you can see, the next set of article, the first of which appeared in the Hindu newspaper, and this article highlights that the Defense Research and Development Organization of India, it has begun its preliminary study on design and development of indigenous conventional submarine project, which is known as Project 76. Now, questions related to various defense developments and military platforms have been a key area of interest for UPSC as far as prelims examination is concerned. Case in point, this PYQ of the year 2016. So we'll understand what is this Project 75I and Project 75 all about. Now this Project 75I, it is a military acquisition initiative which is taken by Ministry of Defense of the Union Government. Now this project, it aims to procure diesel electric attack submarines which have fuel cells as well as air independent propulsion system. Now there is a key difference between Project 75, under which Scorpion submarines were made in Mazgaon Dock Limited, and also the Project 75I. Now this Project 75I, it is a follow-up to the Project 75, and it in a way wants to improve upon the design and technology of the submarines under the Project 75. Now Project 75, as I have already highlighted, provided for manufacturing of Scorpion submarines in India, which was manufactured under the technology transfer from French company. Now these submarines, they are having improved features such as advanced acoustic absorption technique, low radiated noise levels, long range guided torpedoes, tube launch anti ship missiles, as well as sonar and various sensors. Now, however, although these submarines have improved feature, but they also have electrical batteries. So to charge these electrical batteries, these Scorpion submarines have to surface once every 48 hours. And this is a critical design issue. So to deal with this design issue, DRDO has come up with an AIP, or air independent propulsion technology. Now this technology, it provides for greater submergence of submarine, that submarines can stay submerged for as much as 2 weeks, which reduces their chances of detection. Now the size of submarine which will be constructed under project 75I will be bigger than that of project 75 submarine, and also the project has a bigger budget. That the project 75 had a budget of 23,000 crores, whereas on the other hand the project 75I has a budget of 43,000 crores. So in this regard, let us now solve the practice question. What is project 75I sometimes seen as news related to? Now it's quite clear from our discussion, option B is correct, as these project 75I, it is related to procurement of diesel electric attack submarines. Now moving on to the next article, which you can see appeared in the Indian Express newspaper, and this news article highlights that due to dismal performance in the current Lok Sabha elections, as the vote share of BSP was just 2.4%, and due to this the party risk losing of national party tag. Now various decisions specially made by Election Commission of India have been asked by UPSC before. So you can understand this topic is important from prelims perspective. Further, GS paper to syllabus also highlights the regulation of elections in India by the Election Commission of India. So in this regard, let us now understand how are political parties recognized in India. Now the recognition of political parties, it is done by Election Commission of India based on the criteria of poll performance. Now the criterias are laid in a legislation which is called Election Symbol Reservation Allotment Order, and these criteria, they were earlier, that is pre 2014, they were reviewed every 5 years. However, after 2014, it was changed that the review, it takes place once in 10 years. So in a way, any national party which has been given a national party tag can stay as a national party for a period of next 10 years, and only after next 10 years their status will be reviewed again by the Election Commission of India. Now let us understand what are the conditions that a party should fulfill in order to be classified as a national party by Election Commission of India. Now there are 3 separate criteria, and the party has to fulfill either one of these criteria. The first criteria is that any political party which secures 6% of valid votes which are polled in any 4 or more states during a period of general elections, in addition to winning 4 or more seats in Lok Sabha for any state or states. Hence, if the party fulfills this criteria, that is obtaining 6% of votes from any 4 or more states and also winning 4 seats from any state in the Lok Sabha, will make them eligible for status of a national party. Now let us understand the second criteria, that any political party which obtains 2% of seats which are there in Lok Sabha at any general election, and these candidates are elected from 3 different states, then the party becomes eligible to be categorized as a national party. And the third criteria is that whenever a party is designated as a state party in 4 states, then that party becomes a national party. Understood? Now what are the criterias for recognition as state party? I have provided that in the notes which you can refer to after the session ends. Now there are many benefits for a party who is recognized as a recognized party. For example, any unrecognized political party, they are given a benefit of having 20 star campaigners. Whereas any national party or a state party, they can have as much as 40 star campaigners. Hence, any recognized party, they'll have more star campaigners. Further, national parties, they are guaranteed for the use of common election symbol throughout the country. That is, for example, any political party, if they use a particular election symbol, then that election symbol cannot be used by any political party across the country. Hence, it gives a party an exclusive right to have a particular election symbol. Further, these national parties, they are also provided with land or accommodation for having an office in the National Capital Territory of Delhi, in addition to obtaining free copies of electoral roll and also getting an airtime on Doordarshan and All India Radio during a period of elections. So based on this information, let us now solve the practice question. Consider the following statements with reference to political parties in India. The first statement, a national party is the one which secures 4% of valid votes polled in at least 3 states at a general election to the Lok Sabha. Now, as you can see from these conditions, any political party, it is required 6% of valid votes, and this should be secured from 4 or more states in addition to winning 4 seats from any state. So whenever this criteria is fulfilled, then a party is given recognition as a national party. Hence, the first statement which says 4% and 3 states, it is incorrect. The second statement, a party's national recognition is reviewed in the first election after the one in which it has gained a status. Now this, which highlights the period of review for 5 years, it was in application before 2014. And after 2014, the period of review has been increased to 10 years. That is, the party, it is the status of a party is not reviewed in the first election itself. Rather, it is reviewed in the next election cycle, that is after a period of 10 years. So which of the statement given above is or are correct? As you can understand from our discussion, both of the statements are incorrect. Hence, option D is the right answer. Now moving to the last article of the day, which you can see appeared in the Business Line newspaper, and the news article highlights that the commercial approval for advanced BT cotton soon will be given soon. Now this BT cotton, which is a genetically modified crop, it is important from UPSC perspective because questions have been asked before exactly on this topic. Further, GS Paper 3 syllabus highlights awareness in the field of biotechnology, which again makes this topic important from mains perspective as well. Now let us understand what is this BT cotton, that is the genetically modified version of a cotton crop. Now this cotton crop is India's first transgenic crop which was formally approved for commercial cultivation back in the year 2002. Now there are two versions of this crop. First, that is BG1, which was approved in 2002, followed by a improved 2G BT cotton, that is Bolga 2, in the year of 2006. Now this crop, it is genetically modified, which makes this crop a pest resistant plant, and this was modified by insertion of one or more genes, that is this gene, which is obtained from a soil bacterium called Bacillus thuringiensis. So this Bacillus thuringiensis is what abbreviated as the term BT. Also, the strain of this bacterium, that is Bacillus thuringiensis, it produces a specific toxin which makes this crop harmful to variety of insects, which also includes American bollworm. Now this American bollworm, it is a particular menace for India's cotton crop. Hence, you can see this crop was brought forward with the aim to reduce the amount of insecticides that is required in farming of cotton crops. Hence, let us understand what are the associated benefits of the use of GM cotton crop. First of all, it reduces production cost. As you can understand, it reduces the need for farmers to invest in more and more insecticides. Hence, it can increase the profit. Further, it also improves the economic outlook for cotton crop. And based on this economic outlook, India has become a net exporter of cotton. Further, this particularly GM crop, it does not harm non-targeted beneficial insects, hence it in a way promotes ecological development also. Further, as the amount of insecticides will be used less by farmers, hence it also in a way reduces the runoff of insecticides, and it also reduces the water and air pollution. So based on this information, let us now solve the practice question. With reference to BT cotton, consider the following statements. The first statement, it is developed by insertion of genes from an indigenous cotton plant. Again, this is an incorrect statement. As I've already highlighted, it was the original cotton crop was modified by insertion of a soil bacterium and not a bacterium from indigenous cotton plant. Further, the second statement, it is India's first ever transgenic crop which was formally approved for cotton cultivation, and this is a correct statement as it became the first crop to be recognized by the government back in the year 2002. Also, this crop has helped in reducing the runoff of insecticide. Now, as the third statement is also correct, which I have highlighted in the benefits section. Hence, you can see as statement 2 and 3 are correct. Hence, option B is the correct answer to this practice question. So, with this, we conclude our today's session of Daily News Simplified, and do not forget to tune in to our YouTube channel again tomorrow at 6 p.m. because we'll be publishing the interaction of Dr. D. Subbarao with that of students. Until then, I bid you a very good night.